Um, so my name is Fahim Musa. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a management consultant. I mean, I ran a management consulting business for about 10 years here in Toronto. I started in 2009, focused on strategic planning. And I didn't have a background in marketing or sales. Like many of you here, I was a functional expert. I knew business planning and strategic planning, but I had to learn the ropes when it came to sales and marketing. And I suspect a lot of you were or are in this in the same situation today. But I learned it and I experimented a lot. I did a lot of things that a lot of trainers and coaches and consultants thought me to do. And I've worked with over 150 clients across the US and in Canada, primarily in Canada, but probably 10 or 15% in the US as well, and across the board, like small business, medium-sized, Fortune 100 companies, government agencies, nonprofits, et cetera, right? So the goal of this session is to show you 5 tactics that are working today to create authentic connections with consulting buyers, especially if you want to build connections with C-level buyers, executive vice presidents, senior vice presidents, and so on. Even if it's the mid-sized category and it's not super large companies, I want to focus on those because those are the ones that are most hard to reach. Yeah, small businesses also can be hard to reach, but in my experience, and I'm sure a lot of you agree, if you're focusing on larger companies and even mid-sized companies, those C-level can be super hard to reach. They can seem hard to reach, but we'll talk about some strategies and how you can engage them. Okay, so I'd like you to please type in the chat and let me know the type of consulting you do. I do know a few of you here, but there are a few new faces as well. But type in the chat, let me know the type of consulting you do and who you serve. And as we move forward, if I need to take some examples, I can use those examples. And here's what I want to do in this session. For those of you, especially, I mean, of course, for those of you who are live, who are attending live, I want to make this an interactive session. So I'll present to you probably the first 30 or 40 minutes. I'll talk about these 5 tactics, right? And then I want to open it up to 1 or 2 of you folks. So you can come on and, have a chat right here. We'll do a little bit of hot seat coaching. I will try my best to help you get unstuck with that 1 or 2, those 1 or 2 prospects that you may be trying to speak with, but or trying to get a meeting with, or trying to follow up with, that aren't responding to you or are not kind of engaging with you. So I'd like to at least get at least 1 or 2 of you. So this is a risk-free space. So, if you're interested, you can jump in and participate in that. Another request I have is please switch on your video, right? As much, I'd love to see your lovely faces, of course, but switching on your video helps you focus because oftentimes, and I'm guilty of this as well, in Zoom meetings, I'll switch off my video and I will, multitask. So I'd like you to focus here because, 1 or 2 of these ideas could open up possibilities for you, right? So please switch on your video and follow along, okay? Cool. So let me start off by talking a little bit about challenges we face when prospecting and when trying to build authentic relationships, right? When it comes to prospecting, I like to not use overly salesy tactics. There are a lot of people who will teach you to connect with somebody on LinkedIn or, hire an agency and blast messages and to kind of, land meetings, right? There is a place for cold outreach, but just blasting mass market in emails to decision makers at companies and so on. I mean, not only do they not work for the most part, as far as my experience is concerned, they also can damage your brand. And if you are not targeting a large number of companies, let's say you're targeting, 300 or 400 companies in your ideal client list, then you can't keep blasting emails day in and day out. You'll just run out of organizations to reach out to. So I like to build relationships. I like to be more helpful rather than try and sell something upfront. I like to get to know people. It is a slower process, I admit, but the types of relationships you can build and the types of opportunities that come to you down the line, in my experience, are far more superior, right? And the kinds of conversations that you have also are far richer. So that's the type of sales that I like to advocate for. And now, if you're selling to organizations, I think that having that approach and mindset is the best way to go. As long as you are consistent and constantly in that zone, that mode of prospecting. This should be an almost daily thing. If not daily, it should be a weekly thing, right? As business owners and as consulting founders, we're often very, very busy with delivering projects and delivering engagements. We forget prospect, and sometimes we feel that we don't have the time for it, but you got to make it a conscious decision to be deliberate about prospecting and make it a point to do it almost every day. That's when you'll see results. Okay, so the challenges that we face when we try to land meetings, but we're unable to get through to the decision maker, right? That's the first challenge we have, right? You try and land a meeting with a decision maker, but you're simply not able to get through to them, and you end up not landing meetings with them. They may say they're busy. They may have gatekeepers, secretaries, PAs that don't let you in. They may even ghost you. You may meet them somewhere at an event or a conference, exchange emails or a business card, and you send them an email later on, and they may simply ghost you, right? Sometimes they may meet with you, but they put off having that serious conversation. You may have one conversation, and then there's a follow-up that's agreed on, and then you follow up, and then they just keep putting off that meeting. Let's meet next quarter, or I'll call you when I'm ready, or so on, right? So those are some of the challenges that people I work with go through, challenges that I go through myself. If this resonates, if this is something that you guys have gone through or are going through, just type in the chat so I know that this is all relevant information. Okay. Right. So that's a challenge that we have when trying to reach out to folks and not getting any response. Then you have the other challenge of reaching out. You land meetings, right? Either through referrals or warm introductions or whatever. You land meetings, but they're not ready to buy, right? And that there's a challenge. There is a challenge. They acknowledge that there is a problem they want to fix, but they're just not ready to buy right now. Either they've hired a consulting firm before, and they're in the middle of executing that engagement, or they burned their fingers before with a consultant. They're just figuring out if they can solve this problem another way. Do they hire internally, or can they just do it themselves? So they're just not ready to buy, regardless. Or they are, they just have other priorities right now. It's just simply not the right time. They may be busy with a midterm planning exercise or some kind of budgeting exercise, or something else comes up and they're just not ready to buy right now, right? In those situations, how do you keep the conversation going? How do you keep building those connections? How do you follow up in a way and build a relationship without being too salesy, right? So we're going to be talking about tactics that that apply to both these scenarios, right? Where you're not able to get the first meeting, and you've got the first meeting, but they're not ready to buy, right? And then you have a situation where you have to keep following up, and it feels a little awkward to follow up and say, "Hey, Bob, great meeting with you a couple of weeks ago. We decided we'd follow up. Are you ready to move forward? Can I send you a proposal?" I mean, that stuff rarely works, right? You can do it once. I mean, I wouldn't suggest you do it even once, but even if you do it once, how many times can you do it again, right? You can't keep doing it over and over again, right? So you need to have some way of building the relationship, building urgency, showing the need, or building the need for your product system, your service, in a way which isn't too salesy, which is in a way which isn't too in your face, and in a way which is helpful. Okay. Right. So let me know in the chat if this resonates. Satish, thanks for your thanks for your comment. And the others, just let me know if this resonates and if we're on the right track. Okay. So let me start off with the first of the 5 approaches. Okay. So, and the deeper I go, the more advanced I'm going to get, right? I'm going to start off with some basic stuff that some of you may know, some of you may already be doing. But as we move forward into the 3rd, 4th, and 5th tactic, I'll talk about some advanced stuff. I run a company where I work with management consultants, business owners, consulting founders that are prospecting, and they're deep into prospecting. And so we run a lot of experiments, right? We do a lot of experiments. We try things that we've never tried before, and some things work, some things don't work, right? So I'm going to share with you a few things that I've worked along the way, and if it helps you, that's great. Okay. So the first thing the first tactic that I want to put forth that allows you to build authentic connections with consulting buyers is referrals and warm introductions, right? Now, this is basic, right? It's table stakes. I bet all of you, if you run a business, if you run a consulting business, you have landed a client or two through a referral, or through accessing your warm network, right? It's pretty normal. It's pretty basic. But here's the thing, hardly anyone systemizes it, right? You don't put a system around it, and you don't do it often enough. Initially, when you start a business, you tell people that you've started this company, and you may get a client or two out of that. And then as you move forward, you may, get 1 or 2 random referrals and random introductions from your existing client network. That also is very common, right? But what we miss out on is systemizing that. And when I say systemizing that, I'd like you to think about seeking out referrals and warm introductions a monthly thing, right? You want to not only go back to clients that you've worked with in the past and you've done great work for, but you also want to reach out to people that you know in your personal and professional networks that can open up relationships for you, right? I know people that have, opened up relationships with people just by, meeting people at their kids' soccer game, and, building a relationship from there and getting some kind of, introduction to an organization, right? I mean, that's an outlier, but I'm saying that you want to ensure that every month you have people that you're reaching out to. Either you worked with them before, or they're a past colleague, they're a peer, they're a strategic partner that you've worked with in the capacity of, serving a client. Oftentimes when you do consulting engagements with a client, you'll have strategic partners that you come in contact with. You want to, build relationships with them, ensure that, they know about your business, you know about their business, and figure out how you can help each other. You also want to initiate strategic partnerships with people in partnerships for your own company, right? A little later on in the business, in your consulting business, you'll find that strategic partnerships for your own business can be useful, right? For example, I had a management consulting firm. I had a partnership with an accounting firm that had the same kind of clientele, right? Initially, I would advise that you go direct and you land clients directly through introductions and referrals. But at some point, you want to build strategic partnerships as well. But I digress. I'm just trying to give different avenues where you can access referrals and warm introductions. And I define the referral as an introduction that you get from your existing or former clients. And I define a warm introduction as an introduction that you get from a non-client, someone that you've worked with as in a past corporate life, or someone that you know from your personal network, and so on. But here's the thing. Now, if you have not put a system around building relationships and creating authentic connections with by using referrals and warm introductions, here's an action item for you. Create what I call an engagement 100 list. This is what I do with my clients in my training and coaching program. We create an engagement 100 list. The engagement 100 list is a list of people comprising both your clients, your former clients, and people that you know really well in your professional and personal network. Creating a list of up to 100 of them. You don't have to create a list of 100 people right off the bat, but up to 100, not more than 100. Your engagement list can be 20 people, 30 people, 40 people, but not more than 100, right? These are people that you can very reliably simply pick up the phone and say, hey, Mr. Client, we love working with you. You know that we had we enjoyed working on your a problem in your engagement and solving the problem that you had. I'm not sure if you know that the way that we get more business for our land more clients for our business is through referrals and introductions. Can we have a 20-minute conversation so we can talk about this and run some names run some names in that session. And before you get to that 20-minute conversation with this individual, you want to go to their LinkedIn, see who else they're connected to. LinkedIn allows you to show to see who else they're connected to, and see if there are people in their network that you want to meet. Go to that meeting with 6 to 8 people in mind, right? And then you can run those names with your client, right? You want to go with at least 6 to 8 people in mind, because on LinkedIn people connect with anybody and everybody. So not everybody not all the names you run will be relevant, or they probably won't know most of them, but maybe 1 or 2 of them they would know, and 1 or 2 referrals every week. If you're doing this consistently with a lot of people, that could fill your pipeline really well, right? So that's what you want to keep doing, right? With the engagement 100, make a list, create a Google spreadsheet, make a list of all those folks. Then in the next column, you want to look at their each LinkedIn profile and add people that you want to connect with, that they're connected to, right? Very soon you have a list of hundreds of people, potential people. Then you call each of the your contacts, the people in your engagement 100, and say, let's get on a call. I'd love to talk to you and run some names by you, right? So that's what you want to do on a consistent basis, right? And as you're networking, as you kind of meet new people at events and conferences, or even on LinkedIn or other online forums, you want to keep doing this over and over again, as long as you know them reliably well, and as long as you build a relationship. You want to keep doing this so that you can, have them open up relationships for you, right? I know that most of you get clients through referrals and warm introductions, but not, I can say this for sure that, the majority of you may not have a system around it, right? So this is what you want to be doing. You want to create that engagement 100 list and ask for 20 minutes in their calendar, run those names, and do it day in and day out. And here's a pro tip for you. When you do this, the biggest challenge you have is not reaching out and getting that first call with your contact on your engagement 100 list. It's the follow-ups. You see, sometimes what will happen is when you call them, they will say, and you run the names by, they'll say, okay, I'm gonna reach out to these folks and see if they're interested in the conversation, and I'll get back to you. And then sometimes they may not get back to you. So you want to kind of, because you know these folks really well, you can kind of call them up, or you can text them on WhatsApp, or you can even send them an email and say, hey, what's going on? Did you reach out to those folks? And so on, right? I mean, I'm assuming you know these people really well, so you can be a little informal with them. So that's the challenge that you may be having. And the key is setting aside 10 to 15 minutes every morning, making sure that you're following up at the right times with these people, and making sure that you don't leave, a large gap between when you spoke to them and, when they get back to you, right? So create a system around building referrals and warm introductions. They are by far the number one channel for building authentic relationship with consulting buyers, because consulting is still, despite all the tech and the digital way tools and marketing is gone, consulting is still a relationship game. It's a game that is played between friends, where you introduce each other to decision makers within organizations and so on. And especially if you want to reach out to C-levels and executive vice presidents and people higher up in larger companies, I mean, you got to get in through a referral. That's by far the most effective way of doing it. Okay. Right. So that is a referral and warm introduction led way of building authentic relationships, right? Number two is, again, this is a basic one, okay? Content led, right? You want to create the right content and get in front of the right audience, so that you build credibility and you build affinity, and then which turns into trust, right? If you're not getting in through referrals, then the next best way is through content and thought leadership, because that builds affinity, and then affinity leads to trust. Now, the best type of content that I've seen work in our business is speaking at third-party events, right? This could be online, this could be offline, right? I'm going to come to creating your own content on platforms and so on, and distributing your content. But if you have the opportunity, if you have the knowledge, and I'm sure you have the knowledge, because otherwise you wouldn't be advisors and consultants. But if you have the bandwidth and the opportunity to get in front of people and get on stage, whether it's at an industry association, whether it's at a conference, sometimes you can also, clients, if you have large clients, they have internal conferences as well, where they're looking for speakers. So you can get in and speak at those events as well, where, other departments and other business units from that same organization will be present, right? So if you have an opportunity to get on a stage, that's by far the best way of creating content, creating and distributing content. I have a client who we've been working on this a lot for, and for the past 6 to 8 months, we've been seeing that every time she gets on a stage, right? I don't know what it is. Every time she gets on a stage and she delivers insights, she delivers some kind of a talk, or leads a workshop or a seminar, something happens. a couple of months ago when she got on stage, two very senior people in the audience. This was a client-led conference. This was a large organization, $1 billion plus organization. They had an internal conference. This client of mine was working with one business unit, but in that conference, there were other business units and other department leaders present as well. And she got on stage, she delivered some insights, and she saw, a lot of people nodding their heads as to what she was saying. She took a note of them and, started networking with them after the talk, and got a couple of meetings, right? And it's not like those meetings are gonna, give you business straight away, but they're serious meetings, because these decision makers saw her on a stage talking about relevant issues, right? And here's the thing about standing on a stage and speaking on a stage: it adds immediate credibility, it adds immediate a trust, right? Affinity, which then leads to trust. So I would encourage all of you here. You've got the knowledge, but you want to find ways of finding opportunities to speak on stage. And again, this is a larger topic on how to find opportunities. There are many ways. There are third-party agents, there are speaking bureaus, there are industry associations you could reach out to, and so on. But speaking on stage is a great way to create content and land new opportunities and build relationships with C-level buyers. Because here's the other thing, I remember this. When you're going after large or mid-sized or large organizations, and you want to connect with C-levels and executive vice presidents, senior vice president, those folks are typically, based on my experience at least, they're typically not hanging around on LinkedIn, right? So you can't expect to kind of create content on LinkedIn and expect to attract the large, the whales, if you will, see decision makers at these large whale type organizations. So what you really want to do is, create content that's delivered from a stage, and that's where these folks hang out, at large conferences and large events and so on, right? So find a way to do that. That's a way you can attract your target buyers. Okay, so speaking is working really well. Now, if you want to go online, right? I know of people, I've done this before in my consulting business as well, where I've used this tactic of, starting a podcast. I had a podcast before, right? And this is a podcast as well, but in my consulting days, I had a podcast. And what I used to do was reach out, find the contact information of decision makers, reach out, folks, and even if there was a gatekeeper or a PA, I would reach out and say, I'm from, such and such podcast. I'd love to interview your boss on this topic. It's 45 minutes, and I have an audience of 5,000 people, right? And if you have 5,000 connections on social media, you can say you have an audience of 5,000 people, right? So that way you're reaching out as not as a salesperson, but as a quasi media person, if you will, right? You're not reaching out as someone that says, hey, I want your business, but you're reaching out as someone that is providing value. Now, this used to be a hot tactic, but right now, I mean, it's still basic. We're still in the basics of this presentation. But if you haven't tried it before, and if you feel that there's very few podcasts in your industry, in your space, and people are not inundated with podcast requests, then perhaps this is something that you can try. Okay. If you don't want to do a podcast, you can also do a text interview, right? Like you could use LinkedIn, right? You can use LinkedIn as your distribution channel. Pick up the phone and say, hey, I'm doing an article on my marketing channels, and it goes out to so many people, and I want to ask you 5 questions, right, on such and such a topic. That's another way of opening up a relationship with someone that you don't have a relationship with before. And even if you get a warm introduction to somebody, and you want to kind of start the relationship well, you could, instead of asking for business straight away, you could pitch a conversation, pitch an interview. I want to ask you 5 questions about your industry, about trends, or what you see going on in your domain, and then that's how you build a relationship, right? Again, that's a connection that you make. So don't always start off a new relationship trying to sell something. I like to start off a new relationship getting to know the person, getting to know their challenges, and build a relationship from there, right? And this is far more doable when you have an active pipeline and when you're not desperate for that next client. A lot of the times we finish an engagement and you realize you don't have another client, and then you kind of pound the payment and you're desperate. You kind of, anybody you meet, you start talking about, hey, how can I help you? Let's do business, et cetera, et cetera. But if you have an active pipeline, you don't need to behave that way. You don't need to be desperate, right? You can start off new relationships or any referral or introduction that you get, actually trying to build a relationship or trying to connect with the person intellectually, or just by having a conversation about the industry or about trends or about the future and so on, right? That's how you build build a relationship, and that's how you build authentic connections with potential buyers. Okay, so that's you can do a text interview as well. So those are some examples of content-led relationship tactics, right? Let's move on, because I want to do the hot seat thing as soon as possible. The third, and now we're getting to the advanced stuff. The third tactic that I want to talk to you about is community-led, right? Now this takes some doing. It takes you got to make some effort. What you really want to do is build a community, right? Just like this one, right? I'm building a community of folks, of consultants that are looking to solve a specific problem, which is building a sales pipeline, or prospecting, and so on. And I'm sharing some content. And along the way, what I'm doing is I hopefully building trust, hopefully opening up some new conversations whenever you're ready to talk, and so on. But essentially, what I'm doing is I have a community, and I show up twice a month and deliver a topic, deliver a webinar or a training on a specific topic, and I get to know people, right? That's the most basic way of creating a community. Another one of my clients has a community, a fintech scaling community. He's a fintech consultant based in Europe, and he's got a community of fintech leaders that he meets sometimes offline, sometimes online, and they get together and they solve a specific problem, right? Another client of mine has a challenger CEO community where they get together again twice a month, and he has guest speakers, he's got mini trainings, he's got some sprints that he runs, and he's got a whole bunch of activity that goes on, and he also has a community platform which I help them put together, and there's active involvement in that community, right? Having a community, the advantage of having a community is that you're actively engaging with individuals, right? And one of the clients I was talking to you about, he's got a community for CEOs. So he's actually built a community for CEOs and heads of business units. And these are folks from mid-sized companies, and sometimes even large companies, and sometimes country heads of organizations, and they're all part of this community, and he converses with them on a daily basis. Not all the time is this going to lead to new business, but that's okay, right? But what's being built is credibility, right? 8 months down the line, they may get back to him and say, hey, you know what? Something you said to me in that March event resonated, so I want to talk about that, right? So having a community allows you access to individuals or potential buyers that you can get to know, build authentic connections with, build a relationship with, make offers at some point to have a conversation with you, because again, when you have a community event, people talk, right? And you get to know what challenges they face, right? And there's a lot of insights that you can gain. And a lot of the times you see people just simply have a round table. They'll call up people, they'll have some kind of round table, they'll talk a little bit, and then they'll close it. But running a community is a lot more than that, right? There are different ways of engaging the community in ways which open up genuine sales opportunities. Okay, so and another example that I can give you is, one of my other clients runs a community in a mastermind format. So only 6 people every 2 weeks. I don't remember. I think it's every month. 6 people are invited to the event. It's the mastermind event, and these are all potential buyers. And each person is given the floor for 10 minutes, right? And these are all C-level executives that come to the events. It's invite only, right? 6 people in each event. Each person is given the floor for 10 minutes. And in that 10 minutes, they will open up to the other 5 about a particular challenge that they're having in their organization. It could be a regulatory challenge. It could be a hiring challenge. It could be an operations challenge. It could be anything, right? And the other 5 would pitch in and provide ideas and perspectives from their experience. You see how powerful this can be, right? Because now those leaders are getting peer feedback. Here's one thing about CEOs and executives that I've learned. These folks crave peer connection. They crave it because there are not many forums out there that provide peer-to-peer connections, right? And if they find a community where they can meet peers on a regular basis that are at the same level that they're at, then they really value that. They keep coming back because they can get insights, they can network, they can know, people in the same level in other organizations. And so that's a way of you adding value, right? That's the service that you provide. And when these folks come in, they really appreciate you as well, because you're the guest, you're the host. Sorry, no, you're the host, right? And you're the moderator, and they automatically begin to respect you. And then there's a back and forth on emails where you send them emails about events, about questions, about research, and so on. And they keep hearing from you, so they keep seeing your name over and over again. All right. Another example of a community is one of my other clients. He helps people in corporate development. So he helps leaders that are in the M&A, mergers and acquisitions space, right? So mergers and acquisitions, the biggest value that you can give these folks is information, because they're always looking to know which companies are for sale. And if you're on the sell side, you want to know, which companies are potentially acquiring. So we created a show called the Boardroom Briefing. So it was a breakfast show. It's online, but 7 a.m. This guy is in the States. At 7 a.m. he would have a breakfast a boardroom briefing, 30 minutes, right? The first 20 minutes he would provide information, right, on key things that are going on in the industry, key players, key movers and shakers, something that he heard in the grapevine, and so on, right? And that's valuable information for these corporate development executives that are potential buyers to this consultant. The last 10 minutes of that show, they would, he would do a bit of Q&A, he would get some insights, get to know people, get to know their challenges, and so on, and build those relationships. Offline, he would reach out to those individual folks who came to the briefing and start talking about those challenges and issues that they spoke of in that event, in that community event. So you see how powerful this is, right? You're building a community, and then you're extracting information, and they're willingly giving you that information, right? And then you can go ahead and talk to them about it. You can create different offerings for them, specific offerings. You can get them on the phone. You can, land meetings and so on and so forth. And it's really powerful. And these folks, again, they're coming there to your community because you have value to provide. Okay. Just type in the chat. Let me know if this is helpful and this is giving you some ideas, right? We're talking tactics here, so use whatever makes sense to you, and pursue that path. Okay. So type in the chat. Let me know if this is useful. Well, while I look at my notes and get and move forward into the next tactic, which is, solution-led connection and relationship building. We've talked about, content-led, we've talked about referral-led, we've talked about community-led. Now this is solution-led. This is really now getting into really advanced stuff, which is basically offering to solve a client problem within, in a 60-minute session. Okay, I'll try and explain this to you in a very, very succinct way, right? A lot of the times it's really hard to get someone on the table, right? And this solution-led tactic is typically used for those prospects that are very hard to follow up with. They're just busy. They say yes. They'll do something. We'll do something together, but then they kind of keep putting you off, right? They kind of putting you off. They have they have priorities that they're dealing with. They have some midterm planning event. They have a presentation with the board and so on. And you're kind of, you're left by the wayside. How do you follow up with such folks, right? So we've been doing a lot of experimentation on this with my clients, and I've come up with something called a solution-led approach. You can either merge this with the community-led approach. You can use this for your communities, or you could use this as a standalone tactic as well. So what I've found is that when people don't make a decision, right? You've had a discovery conversation with them, but they don't make a decision. They keep putting it off. They're stuck in some way, shape, or form, right? So for those folks, what we really want to do is, and again, this is worked for us on a couple of occasions. See if it makes sense to you, and try it. What we did was we created an offering for these folks as a follow-up tactic, and said to them that, hey, you know what? It sounds like, you were interested before, right, in moving forward, but it sounds like there are other priorities. But given how important this problem is for you, and given how significant this problem is for you, can I suggest that we try and uncover what is stopping you from moving forward, right? And to do that, I put together a 60-minute breakthrough offering for you, right? So with you and your core team, so that we can uncover what is stuck. A lot of the times in large organizations and mid-sized organizations, the core problem is execution. They don't execute, right? They get stuck. So we found that when people put things off, they put a potential consulting engagement off. The reason for that is they're stuck with some kind of execution issue. So we put together an offering called a 60-minute breakthrough, where we'll work with you and your team on getting you unstuck wherever you are, so that you can move forward faster, right? Does this make sense to you, is what our call to action is, right? And we'll use, email, we'll use LinkedIn, we'll even kind of call them, or kind of, use WhatsApp, whatever the channel of the channel is, whatever channel works in terms of, how you communicate with that client, and simply put their offer out, right? It's a follow-up tactic. It's a tactic to get your people back on board, right? And, for some clients, for some prospects, it has worked. For some prospects, it hasn't worked, but then there's no harm in trying. If this makes sense for you, go ahead and do it. Because what happens is, a lot of the times, when prospects engage with you, the trust factor is already there, right? They've already engaged with you. They say they want to move forward potentially. They want to do something together. but then something comes up. So when the trust factor is already there, why can't you take it one step more and offer a 60-minute facilitation or a workshop or some kind of breakthrough session that will help them move forward, right? So as an example, right, one of our other clients, there's a design consulting firm, and we help them do a 60-minute part of a design sprint. Like a design sprint has, different phases of how you design something and a feature or a product. And the first phase is it starts off with, developing personas or putting together a journey map or putting together what is called as an empathy map, right? And what this client offers is now just the first phase, a very basic phase of that entire design sprint. And he offers it as, something that you can come in and do, and you can kind of, start the process, right? So if you have a tough prospect that's not responding, consider offering them some kind of solution-led approach where you bring them on the table and you offer something, and it's just 60 minutes, right? What's the worst that can happen? In any case, even if you kind of follow up and they get you back on the phone, you're going to spend 60 minutes or 45 minutes or whatever with them anyway. So may as well spend 60 minutes on helping them move forward and take the next step in whatever situation they're stuck on, right? So that's something that is working. Okay, that's solution there. Now the final thing, I want to quickly talk about follow-up strategies. Now I know I said 5 tactics, but the last tactic is actually a bunch of ideas that are used in follow-ups, right? I just talked about the solution-led approach. You can use this as an initial approach and as a follow-up approach, but these follow-up strategies that I'm going to talk about these are specific to follow-ups, people that are that simply don't respond, right? The first thing you could do, instead of typically, people follow up by saying, "Hey Bob, just bumping this email to the top of your inbox," or some rubbish like that, which is just so cliche. Or they would say something like, "Hey, we talked about this last week. Can we talk again?" I mean, once or twice, that's fine, but how many times can you do that, right? And that is simply, it's just amateurish. But what you want to really use in follow-ups are stuff like, number one, invite them to an event you're hosting, right? If you're hosting an event, and if a prospect you've spoken to will find value in that event, invite them for it. It's the most basic, right? So you're not asking them about getting back on the phone or anything like that, but you just want to be top of mind. You want to have some excuse to reach out to them, and that excuse better be a way in which you help them. Okay, so number one is invite them to an event you're hosting. Number two, share a tool that could be relevant to them. If you're in the web development consulting space, can you share like a website grader that you developed? If you're an inventory consultant or a production or manufacturing consultant, can you share a inventory carrying cost calculator that you may have put together on Excel or something? Some kind of tool that you put together that may help your prospect. If that's a way to get to kind of reach out to them and be in your face, be in their face, or be top of mind, that's a way to open up the conversation again. And if they reply, then you can kind of move forward and take that a little bit more, take that forward. Share an infographic or any kind of content. It could be a video, a recent article, even a third-party article, a replay of a webinar you did, a summary of a transcript of a podcast with specific parts highlighted that is relevant to them, right? Any content that's relevant to them based on a conversation that you've had before, right? Introduce them to a new resource. That's another way of following up as well. Say, "Hey Bob, in our last conversation, you said that you were looking for such and such a vendor. Here's somebody that can recommend, or here's a prospect for you, right? I thought that they might be a good customer for you. Here's a prospect I know that you might end up doing business with, or here's somebody that you can hire an employee that you mentioned to me that you were looking for, right? So be helpful with them and be helpful to them and introduce them to a new resource. Show them a list of relevant connections you have on LinkedIn. This is another way of doing it. You're connected to a lot of people on LinkedIn. Show them a list and say, here's people I'm connected to. Would you like me to make an introduction to you to any of them? Right? That's a proactive way of doing it. Invite them to a live session, right? If you're stuck, let's get you unstuck, like we discussed in the follow-up in the previous section. Invite them to a live session. That's another way of following up. So I know I wanted to get through all of these in about 30 or 40 minutes, but I've taken about 50 minutes. We've got about 5 minutes left. Okay. I want one of you to jump in and give me a situation where you're following up with a prospect, or you're trying to open up a conversation, or want to build an authentic relationship. And then I want to help you, brainstorm ideas and how we do that. So who's going to do it? Cade, Frank, Phyllis, or Clements? This is a risk-free space, folks. So jump in and let's do this. I'll wait. Anybody have a question? Frank, I think you're I can't hear you. I think you're
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Ladies first, Phyllis.
All right, Phyllis, did you want to talk first? I mean,
okay, if nobody volunteers, I will volunteer. So
yeah, go ahead.
how hot is the hot seat? What do you want to know?
What do you want to? Who are you trying to reach out to that is a challenge?
My challenge is that I'm flying too low. So typically my clients are C-2, C-3. I want to climb up one ladder.
So you wanna reach out to C levels?
C or C-1 rather, I guess.
That's EVPs, SVPs, right? So what are you doing right now? What are you doing to reach out to them?
Yeah, some good stuff in here, Fahim. Predominantly that LinkedIn stuff.
LinkedIn stuff, but so when you say C and C-, what is the size of company? What size company are you going after?
More than $1 billion in revenues.
See, that's the problem. Like, LinkedIn is a great place, to connect with directors, maybe even some VPs, right? But as you go higher, executive vice presidents, board members, C-levels, in my experience, large companies, it can be difficult. It's not the number one place, right? It may be a way to kind of connect with them, and then maybe once you know them, you follow up and stuff. But they're typically not waiting for somebody to reach out to them on LinkedIn. And sometimes, here's the thing: sometimes these folks, their LinkedIn is monitored by their EA. They don't even go to their LinkedIn. So that's a challenge. That's why I mentioned to you that, Frank, I know you, Frank. You're an author, right? You have an advantage. You want to be speaking on stages. Have you done that before?
I'm intensifying that, getting more and more assignments.
So you're an innovation consulting, are you not?
Mm-hmm.
So innovation is a hot topic. They've got a lot of conferences. They've got a lot of even smaller events, hackathons. I mean, okay, hackathon may be the wrong thing, but you want to go after, if you're doing corporate innovation, as I understand you're doing, you want to go after large conferences and industry events, and get on stages, because I know that you have experience. You've written a book. You've got some kind of a following, because I've interacted with you before. So I would say that as a medium-term play, I know I'm not giving you any, I know you want an answer from me that will help you tomorrow.
No.
I'm coming to that. I have some immediate ideas as well. But as a medium-term play, you want to get on stages and you want to talk, because it is very, very powerful. And the advantage that you have is that you're already a thought leader, right? And having written a book immediately gives you credibility, right? And we've talked about this before, like, thought leaders, people in consulting buyers look up to thought leaders, like people that have done original research. They have written a large volumes of articles, or even written a book, and so on. And they want to learn from them, because consulting in the is an intellectual exercise, right? So you have an advantage. You've written a book. Find stages. That should be a medium-term plan. The short-term plan. How are you leveraging your current connections, your referrals and warm introductions?
Yeah, I bolded that engagement 100 list. That was very, very helpful.
That is, I have a consultant right now that I'm working with. She's a HR consultant, very senior HR consultant. And over the past 6 months, this engagement 100 strategy has opened up about 30 conversations with C-levels. And she was already connected to them, in the sense that, she didn't know them really well, but she was connected to a lot of those folks, but she was connected to CFOs, and she wanted to meet CEOs. So her engagement exercise, she connected with the CFO she knew, and then asked for referrals to CEOs and other, executives within the organization. And she's got about 25 to 30 conversations, right? So in our business, that works the best. As a short-term goal, I would encourage you to do that, because you can land conversations, next week with that. Not with your ultimate buyers, but at least with people that in your engagement network, who you can simply pick up the phone and say, hey, let's have a conversation, because those folks know you well. That's a definition of an engagement 100 list, where these are folks that know you really well. And you have that camaraderie, you have that connection, and then through them, you reach out and you see who they're connected to, and you get to get introductions to your potential buyers. So that's the short term. Long term is hit the stage. I hope that was helpful, Frank.
Yeah, definitely, super helpful.
Great. So, any other last questions that we've got? I know we're at the top of the hour. A question or two. I'm here, and if not, then you can always reach out to me on LinkedIn. Just reply to one of my emails, or if you're listening to the recording, you could again reach out to me via email. Connect with me on LinkedIn if you're not. I do share content on a regular basis, which you might find helpful, so we can stay in touch that way. And again, for those of you here, is that Clemens? Yeah, go for it.
And actually, your presentation today resonated to me in another way. I am a cloud architect, and what I'm looking for is the way to be present or participate into gathering of some executive levels, so I can get familiar to their gathering, how they talk, be comfortable with them.
Yeah.
I'm looking for this type of possibilities, and I don't know how to do this.
So just so I understand your question, you are looking for forums
it's
where...
not necessarily yes, while doing that, I'm gonna be connecting with them, but I want the possibilities to be around those, like to get to know them better. Like, what do they talk about when they get together? Although I am not, at this level, I just want to be able to understand.
Yeah, okay. So there are two ways to do that.
Okay.
So if you want to really understand the language and what people in your market are talking about and what they're interested in, you can do primary research, right? You can reach out to them through a referral, saying that you're researching the industry and you have 5 questions for them, and you can approach them that way, right? I mean, I'm talking in a very simplistic way. There are different tactics and ways to reach out to people, but you can do that. That's primary research. Then there's secondary research. Secondary research is just go to YouTube, go to podcasts, go to blogs, go to publications, and search for these folks, search for interviews with these folks, and see what they're talking about, what their challenges are, what their priorities are, what they're doing right now to solve their problems, why their priorities are important, what are their goals for the next year, and so on. So you'll get, the more you kind of research secondary, like, stuff that's already been published online, you'll get some understanding of what they talk and what's important to them and so on. Is that what you were looking for?
Yes, that's a good idea. These are good ideas that you gave me.
Yeah. So that's how you. I mean, and information is power. So when you reach out and ask for insights and learn insights, that's what's going to help you build a solution and build your offering.
All right.
All right, Clemens, and the others, thank you for your time. I appreciate you taking the time and coming, and we'll be in touch. And look out for the recording. For those of you live, you'll get the recording soon. And for those of you listening to the recording, connect, and I'll see you next time.